Hi, and welcome back. So, a little bit of history about me and my food advocacy work. In 2011, I started something called a ballot initiative. That's where like half of the states can do this political process where if you feel like your government isn't doing the kinds of laws that you want them to do, then in state by state, if your state does this, you can get enough signatures on a petition so that the people will vote on it. So I had been learning about genetically engineered foods for quite a while, and I'm not here to tell other people what to do or to not do, but what I really resent is not being able to be given a choice about what I eat because of the lack of food transparency, or for corporations to be dishonest about what they're selling us. So the more science I read, I've taken quite a few science courses. I don't have a PhD in science, but I can read. I can understand most of the terms, and we can talk about science at another video in the science and technology department when I get that going. But I understand enough about science, particularly biology, to question what's going on. I believe we have a right to know what we buy. What's in what we buy, whether it's food or a mattress or our clothing or the house that we live in. What kind of problems are wrong with it, or what if you have a car, you don't want to buy a car that's a lemon. I believe that as citizens we have a right to know what we're investing in and what we're spending our money on. And in food, that means transparency about what's in if it's a processed item, then what's in the processed item. And then you get into all sorts of into the weeds in the woods there that we'll talk about on various different videos. But genetically engineered stuff is new. And the thing that concerns me the most is there's a lot of fake science out there on the pro-GMO side. There is a lot of bashing of scientists and trying to silence them on if they raise any kind of a question about the products from their studies. Their studies show data. We've gotten information. We always knew that we were being lied to, but now we have proof via Freedom of Information Acts and court document release that corporations know the potential problems, but are either withholding information from the regulatory agencies or are in cahoots with the regulatory agencies. But at any rate, in 2011, this was all all this positive proof we have now. I was just concerned because I don't know if they're safe or not, but I did know that there has never been one longitudinal long-term study on the potential health effects of genetically engineered foods. And nobody can argue that. Nobody can argue the fact that the FDA scientists themselves were concerned about increase in allergens and different toxicity to certain organs. So, and to my mind, if that's a question, then we have a right to decide whether we want to opt in or out of that experiment. It shouldn't be decided for us. And the only way that we can opt in or opt out is if we know where the stuff is. It's a huge topic, that's a huge rabbit hole, and I don't want to put up a 5-hour video, but suffice it to say, I got upset enough that even though I had no political experience, no connections, no money, no experience, nothing, I decided that it was time for the people of California to have a ballot initiative to label genetically engineered foods. And so I did research, like if you've watched any of my video on starting this adventure on vlogging, I do research. So I took some time to do some research on how to do the political process. I got a PAC set up, I got a website set up, and then I literally just started reaching out on Facebook and I got in Sally, who I've not introduced to this vlog just yet, but I got in Sally and I started driving around the state of California talking to people about this topic. So what happened was it mushroomed into this big thing. It wouldn't have gone anywhere. If other people that have money and know-how hadn't come on board. I'm real clear about that. I was the spark, but I wasn't the reason it moved forward completely. So I think my job was just to keep it alive long enough until enough people who did have money and expertise going to keep it going. I called myself the initial instigator, and I still have that on my business card for this new project that I have. At any rate, So we had the election in 2012. We lost by a very small margin, even though we had been polling way ahead of time. Opposition spent $46 million in the last like 9 weeks blasting the airways with lies and confusing talking points and things that just weren't true. And people, even people that supported labeling, they're so good at what they do. They voted against it. So we didn't prevail at the the voting box. But we did spark something that happened around the country. And so what happened was eventually we had a couple more ballot initiatives, one in Washington and one in Oregon, both kind of the same scenario, but smaller margin of loss both those times. The one in Oregon, we only lost like 950 votes or something like that. It was so close. But on the East Coast, they were getting some legislative laws passed. Vermont, Connecticut, and New Hampshire all passed, Maine, not New Hampshire, Maine, all passed labeling bills. So anyway, two of them were kind of interesting in that they had something called a trigger clause, which I won't get into here, but Vermont was set to go into law last July in 2016. So big ag and big biotech and big chemical companies and the poison people, as I like to fondly call them, didn't like this. They don't want you to know. Big food doesn't want you to know what they're feeding you, and the stuff, whether it's genetically engineered stuff or Roundup in your food or any other kind of, poison, literally poison, the herbicide or pesticide. They don't want you to know about the dyes they use or the natural flavors, which are very often anything but, or the other crap that they put in the food. And so they they flipped out that Vermont was going to go into law, and at like the last minute, they got a law passed, which we call the DARK Act, the Deny Americans the Right to Know Act. The only reason I think they won is because the Organic Trade Association got some perks, and Organic Trade Association, not Organic Consumers Association, Organic Trade Association. Organic Consumer Association are heroes. They're spot on. But the Organic Trade Association is a lobbying and industry representative for mostly huge organics who don't really care about. Many of them don't really care about the idea behind organics, which is to be kinder and gentler on both humans and the planet. But they're rather just more interested, like all large multinational corporations, in their next quarterly profits. And to do anything they can to get there. So we lost because now the Democrats that had been holding out for real labeling, flipped and supported, because the Organic Trade Association supported it. So we all did, which couldn't be further from the truth. Anyway, so Obama signed the DARK Act into law last July, I believe, and it shocked us, to be honest with you, and it set a lot of activists back. They just kind of like didn't know what to do. So, and I was one of them. I had been running, 60 to 80 hours a week for 5 years, basically as a volunteer, not basically, I was a volunteer except for like 4 months during the campaign in 2012. I got ill, from all the anger and the work and all that stuff. And, so I needed to take a little bit of a step back, which I did last year. I'd been doing a little bit incrementally, but really stepped way back last year. In 2016, I did work on a campaign in Sonoma County that created brought together 5 counties to create, in Northern California, to create a GMO-free growing zone. So that was very exciting, and it won. So now we've got like 13,734 square miles of GMO-free growing zone in Northern California. So cool. At any rate, I took some time, and I had been percolating for about 2 years to do a new project called the Good Food Brigade. That's what the name that we ended up being, and it's to be a good news service to inspire and hopefully encourage folks to work on local food systems. A couple of reasons that I'm really attracted to that. The first one is that local food tends to be healthier because you eat it faster. The minute something's picked, it starts to lose its nutritional value. The other reason is that when you buy locally, you can be a little more in control, or when you grow your own, you're definitely in control of what you're eating. And did you know that in the World War II and World War I era, 42% of all the produce in the United States was grown in our yards? Isn't that amazing? What I'd like to see is us growing that amount of produce in our yards and our urban farms and in our CSAs, not for war, but just for the joy of it. So I'm starting this project, and I thought it would be interesting to bring you along on my travels for the personal part. We do have another channel for that, where I'll be interviewing people around the country, maybe the world. Wouldn't that be exciting? Just about things they're doing to create a more local, stronger, more local food system. So whether you're a gardener or a chef, a cook, teaching people how to cook again, because we've lost that art. If you ferment, if you raise animals or bees or food as an urban farmer, if you're a policymaker, or if you're somebody who's still an advocate and doing good work like getting pesticides banned in your school yards and stuff like that, or starting a school garden, please get a hold of us at goodfoodbrigade.org. I will link to our YouTube channel called the Good Food News Network below, and encourage you to contact us. I'm not interested in interviewing all of our regular food heroes that I so admire, but who have a very loud voice on the internet already. I'm interested in interviewing you. Please join us as we change the world one tasty bite at a time. Thanks for stopping by, and if you liked what you heard here, please click on the subscribe button so that you can keep in touch.